Hi, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to my talk, Reading on 3D Surfaces in the Virtual Environment. I'm Chunxue. This work was my master thesis project and done at the University of Melbourne. It was supported by Difeng Yu and supervised by Tilman Dinkler. The main idea of this whole project is exploring 3D shapes as a canvas to render the text in virtual reality. So, what motivates us to do that? As we all know that reading always be a traditional way for people to get information, with new technologies coming, the ways of reading are changing as well. Now we could use the phone, the tablet, even PC to read, instead of just you read on paper. Moreover, the reading interfaces are traditionally two-dimensional, while the text in our surroundings, which rendered on objects, are non-planar. People put on their eyes on the immersive game, interactive experience for virtuality, but less on the text displays. Still have some researchers such as Grout, etc. did a research like about reading surface in virtual reality. So with the help of 3D technologies, we can stretch the confines of those two dimensions. So this makes us explore using different 3D shapes as canvas for text rendering. In this case, we conducted two user studies to investigate the property of 3D shape and their effects on reading. The first study focused on the more general shape different well. The second study investigated the specific shape or parameter. And there is a video shows the text rendered on the concave and sphere in the study. You can see that the text was scrolling from bottom to up. And in the second study, it also included an application scenario. Participants could experience with the text which rendered on different common 3D objects, and I will introduce you later. So at first, we investigated the four basic shapes. We named the plane, concave, sphere, cylinder. In order to make the curved surface comparable, we set the same degree of warp for each surface and keeps other parameters as same. There is a short video shows how the participant managed the test during the study, and this is how scoring works. And they can also control the speed by themselves as well. And we recruited 16 participants in total for the study 1. And the participants were asked to read a short article for each surface. And after that, they need to answer several questions. In this case, we measured comprehension, subjective experience, etc. And here is what we found. We have subjective as well as objective results. We applied the Friedman test for the subjective measures. There are three measures show statistically significant result. To be more specific, as for the reading comfort, the horizontal sounder showed better than the sphere. As for the ease of reading, the plane had a good performance than the sphere. As for the distraction, the sphere is much more destructive than the baseline, which is plane. And as for the objective measures, they didn't show the significant difference between the different surfaces. And to the further detail, I refer you to our paper. And from the study 1, as we focus on those general shapes, we found that reading on baseline provides less distraction and it performed better in ease of reading. And reading on the horizontal sounder shows better performance than the sphere for the comfort level. In another word, we could collect a point that reading experience on the surface which warped in on one axis is better than two axes. Since the main idea of the project is investigating shapes as rendering canvas for tests in reality, so based on those results, we want to go to more depth. What parameters of these shapes could affect readings as well? So we conduct our second study. In our second study, it's still within subject's design, but with three independent variables. At first, the shapes. As I mentioned before, from the study 1, we found that the warp on one axis is better than the two axes. So we focus on those three different shapes: the sphere, the horizontal cylinder, and the vertical one. And secondly, the angles. Because for the study 1, the plan shows better performance in some subjective measures. We want to explore whether the warped angle would affect the reading. And then, the width of view box. In another word, you can think as a horizontal field of view, as the field of view is an important factor in the reality. So we want to know whether this would be also an important factor that affects reading behavior. And also the customizations for the participant could select their preference of the warped angle and the width of the view box, and their preference would be recorded into the database. And basically, we follow the pretty much same protocol as previous studies and the objective measures and subjective measures, but we had an application explored as a part of the study. Here is a video of the scenario. Participants could go into the application and pick up the bottle, so you can see that the test was rendered on different 3D objects, and they could score the test in the application. And they could also compare the curved version with the plain version as well. There are lots of objects they could interact with, like different sizes of cans, bottles, advertisement, pillar, etc. And this application demonstrates how test rendering can be applied to the common warped 3D objects. And in this case, we collect a lot of different quantitative and qualitative data. Those are some findings. As for the subjective measures, the comfort level shows a statistically significant difference. For each variables, to be more specific, as for the wheel box, the shorter one with the field of view is 22.6 degrees shows more comfortable rather than the longer one. As for the warped angle, the most warped perform the worst, while the other two shows a similar performance. But there's no significant difference in the interaction effect and other measures, and then also the objective measures. As for the preference, as you can see, as for the wheel box width, it almost centralized in this area. And if we convert it to the field of view, it would be 25.4 degrees to 28.1 degrees. And as for the preference of the warped angles, the participants in our studies prefer the smaller angles, especially for the sphere. And also, as for the subjective measures, here is a table which shows the correlation between the subjective and objective measures. It just shows the measures which have the correlation relationships. And moreover, the darker, this means the stronger in the relationship. As you can see that the comfort level have the positive correlation with other subjective feelings, such as the reading speed, the understanding or the concentration. However, it is interesting that the objective measures don't correlate well with the subjective measures. So from the above results of our second study, we could find that the warped angle and the width of the wheel box are the factors that affect people's reading comfort level in the virtual environments. And also, the higher reading comfort level would encourage readers to think about their reading quality has been improved, but even the real accuracy and reading speed doesn't change so much. So throughout the whole project, we could get some ideas like reading on two axis warped objects provides less ease of reading, especially compared with a plane. And it is also much easier to read on a single warped axis compared with two axes. And reading on a flatter display is considered more comfortable. According to the participant preference, the horizontal field of view of the wheel box is recommended to be between 25.4 degree to 28.1 degree when reading text on curved surface in virtual reality. And some measures such as comfort level just positively correlated with the user's subjective impressions, but not show to be related to the actual feelings, actual performance. In other words, the objective performance. From the feedback of the application exploration of the participants, there is a trade-off between the ease of reading and the immersive reading experience. But how to balance these two is still need to think about. So from the whole findings that I mentioned just now, there are some limitations to our project and a couple of assumptions that we were making. The first limitation is that as the vertical field of view of the head-mounted display was limited, we decided to vary the horizontal field of view only. And moreover, instead of using the wireless head-mounted display, we used the Oculus Rift 3.1, which restricts the movement of the users, especially for the second study when they explore the application. It's not such easy for them to move around. They need to use teleportation. And the protocols that we applied in our study to test the legibility sometimes may not accurate enough for the reading speed, because sometimes we ask them to read aloud. Although we point out that there are some trade-offs between the immersive and ease of reading in virtual reality reading experience, but we didn't analyze how to balance it, so it still left some space for the future study. Yes, thank you for listening, and it was my pleasure to be here today. Thank you for watching.